So give me about 10 seconds and then we can get started. All right, perfect. And can everyone see the screen? That's basics of U.S. geography. Okay, I'm seeing nods and a thumbs up, perfect. So first of all, I want to say welcome again to everyone for being here. I'm very excited to teach you all a little bit about the basics of U.S. geography. All right, give me 1 second. Perfect, okay. So I want to start by introducing myself. So as Christina mentioned, I lived in Hustopecha for a year and I worked at the gymnasium there. The picture on the bottom right was me in the town square at Hustopecha, right outside the gymnasium. If any of you attended the lesson on US history with Alex, you might see a familiar face in the top photo. That is me with several other American teachers in Brno. We spent a lot of time in Brno. It's one of my favorite cities that I've ever visited. But before I went to the Czech Republic, I was born and raised in Minnesota, which is in the northern part of the United States. And I actually went to university in Minnesota. So I studied history and music during my time at university. Ever since leaving the Czech Republic, I've been living in Columbus, Ohio. I'm currently working at a university, but I will be leaving that job soon because I am starting graduate school. So I'm going back to university, back to school, and I am going to study higher education, which refers to colleges and universities. So I'm hoping to stay at university for the rest of my life. When I am not in class or working a job, I have several hobbies. I love to read. I love to sing. I even joined the Hustopecha Gymnasium school choir while I was there, which was a very fun experience. And I also love to watch hockey. So I would like to know a little bit more about who is in the room and if any of you also share any of my interests. So if you also love to sing, if you could use the reactions button, which you can see the example on the left-hand side of the slide, put a heart if you love to sing, confetti if you love to read, thumbs up if you also love to watch hockey or play hockey. Ooh, I see lots of readers. Wonderful. Okay, I see another singer as well. Wonderful, awesome. I'm glad we have a couple of things in common. So I thought I would start off by telling you a little bit more about my background by giving you an introduction to the geography of the states that I am from. So like I mentioned, I was born in Minnesota. Minnesota, as you can see, borders Canada, and it's one of the larger states in terms of area. So it's the 12th largest state in terms of area. But we are mostly famous because we have a lot of lakes. So we have almost 15,000 lakes in our state, which is why we are known as the land of lakes. Another fun fact about Minnesota geography is that the Mississippi River actually begins in Minnesota. The Mississippi River is the longest river in the United States and is one of the longest rivers in the entire world. But like I said, I'm no longer in Minnesota, so now I live in Ohio. So I've moved a little bit east to Ohio. Ohio is not that large. Out of the 50 states, it is 35 in terms of area, but we have a lot of people. In Ohio, we actually have more people than in the Czech Republic in total. So in Ohio, there are over 12 million people. And part of the reason why it's so large is that we have 3 very big cities. They're known as the 3 C's. So we have Cleveland, Columbus, where I am, and Cincinnati as well. So I have a challenge for everyone. The United States is obviously very, very large, and Minnesota and Ohio are both in the middle part of the country. So I am curious if you can comment in the chat, How long do you think it would take me to drive if I left my house in Columbus right now and wanted to go visit my parents in Minnesota? So put in the chat, how many hours do you think it would take me to drive from Ohio to Minnesota? Take a guess. A lot. That's a good answer. Okay, see 12 hours, 14 hours, 30 hours, 12 hours, 5 hours. These are all great guesses, and some of you are close. I will wait 10 more seconds for you all to put some answers in the chat. Okay, so I see a range from 4 hours. I think the largest that I saw was 36 hours, which if I wanted to drive from one end of the United States to the other, it would take me over 36 hours. But to get from Columbus, Ohio to Minnesota without stopping, so no time to use the bathroom or to get food, it would take me about 12 hours. So, like I said, these states are both in the middle, right? They're not on either coast, but it would still take me over 12 hours to get home. So, the United States is a very large place. So, I want to learn a little bit more about you all now that you know a bit about me and where I'm from. So, in the chat, if you could comment your name, your hometown, and also your favorite food, that would be great. I would love to learn a little more about who is in the audience. So we'll wait about a minute for everyone to comment and tell me a bit about themselves. Pizza, good answer. Also chocolate. I agree with that. Chocolate is probably my second favorite food. Sushi, pasta. It's a good range. I see some familiar towns as well. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. So if you haven't already, put your introduction in the chat. But again, it's so nice to see everyone. I loved my time teaching, and so it is really fun to be able to be back and to be in a virtual Czech classroom again. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. All right, so let's get started with our first activity. So once you've put your introduction in the chat, if you could get out a pen and a paper, that would be great. Or if you don't have a notebook available, you can also use your phone or a document on your computer. What we will do is I will give you all 2 minutes, and I want you to make 3 lists for me. First, of any US states that you know the name of already. So for example, New York, right? That is a state that many people know. So any states that you know, make as many as you can on your list. Then the second list should be US cities. So what cities do you already know the name of? And the third list should be famous places to visit in the United States. So it could be a famous national park, it could be a famous landmark, it could be a famous building or place that you've seen on television that you want to visit. So once you have made this list and made them as long as you can put done in the chat. So that way I know that you all have finished. But like I said, I'll give you about 2 minutes to brainstorm. Okay, we'll take about 1 more minute to write down as many states, cities, and famous places as you can think of. Okay, so hopefully you all have at least a few items on your list of some states, cities, or famous places that you know. Next, I'm hoping that we can all share our answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring up a site. It's called Mentimeter, and there will be instructions that you will see on the screen. So let me get this up. Okay, so it will take 1 second to load. What you all will do is you will enter the number that is at the top. So you'll go to menti.com on your phone or on the device that you're currently watching on and type in 716-11144. So the number at the top. And then I gave you 6 spots. So if you can, try to enter some of your answers of what states, cities, and landmarks you thought of. That way we can see what are some of our most popular answers. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to enter your answers. If you have any issues, feel free to put them in the chat and Christina and I can try to help with some of the technology if need be. So like I said, if you can, try to put a few from each category. Perfect. I see we're getting some answers. North Dakota, South Dakota. Yes, those are right by Minnesota. Yellowstone, Chicago. Wonderful. Utah, California. Oh, I see some people put Ohio. Yay. You already know a little bit about Ohio. Wonderful. Las Vegas. Absolutely. You have a good range of states and cities. Awesome. So I see we have about 23 people who have contributed. So I will wait another minute or so for people to add their answers. It's okay if you also have less than 6. That's totally fine. As long as you can submit at least one, that would be great. I see several people put Grand Canyon. Absolutely. Chicago is a popular one. Florida. You all already know quite a few of these names and places, which is great. Wonderful. Las Vegas. Yes, I will definitely mention Las Vegas, one of the most famous cities in the US. All right, wonderful. Well, it looks like a lot of people have already submitted your answers. Hopefully this will give you a few ideas of different states and cities that we might be talking about today. My plan for our lesson today is that we are going to cover the main regions in the United States, and we'll talk a little bit about what those regions look like, what they're famous for, and also some of the largest cities in those areas. So hopefully by the end of the lesson, for those of you that are taking the Maturita exam, you will have several different things that you can talk about if you get a question related to the United States or U.S. geography. So I'm going to exit out of this and go back to my presentation, but feel free to keep adding answers. At the end, maybe we can see if people have added any more. Okay. Perfect. So thank you all for adding some great answers to our word cloud. So like I said, we will talk about the 7 main regions of the United States. To give a little bit of background, people divide the United States into 7 different regions. So the first is the Northeast, then the Mid-Atlantic, the Southeast, the Midwest, Southwest, West, and Northwest. But the US is divided in a few other ways. So the gray lines that you can see on this map are the state lines. So as you probably know, the United States is divided into 50 different states that range in size and number of people. The first state was Delaware. So Delaware became a state in 1787, which was after our war for independence from Britain. So we were already a country by the time that we established our first state. After Delaware became a state, many places on the eastern coast in the eastern part of the United States became official US states. Our last state is Hawaii. Hawaii was added at the same time as Alaska. So for a long time, we had 48 states. And then in 1959, we added Hawaii and Alaska to become a 50-state nation. So as I introduce you to each region, I encourage you to take a few notes. We will have some activities throughout that will ask you to remember a little bit about each region. So if you have a pen and paper available, taking a couple of notes will be helpful. But the first region of the United States is the Northeast. The Northeast is known for its landscape, which has very large forests and a rocky coastline. So the picture on the top is actually from Acadia National Park, which is one of our most famous national parks. And it is known for having beautiful views of the beach and a lot of very large forests. Because they have some really great beaches and rocky coastline areas, the Northeast is particularly known for seafood, especially lobster. So if any of you like lobster, you will probably want to go to the northeastern part of the United States. The largest city is Boston. Boston is one of our most historic cities. It's one of our oldest cities. A lot of the events in the War for Independence and our war against Britain happened in Boston. So when many people go to visit, they want to go to visit some of those historic sites. The second region of the United States is the Mid-Atlantic. The Mid-Atlantic is probably most known for the largest city in the United States, New York City. I'm sure you all know a little bit about New York City, but because it is the largest city in the United States, it's one of the most popular places for tourists to go and visit. But it's not the only important city in the Mid-Atlantic. Our capital city, so where all of our government is, for example, President Biden lives there, is Washington, D.C. And that is also in the Mid-Atlantic region. So our largest city and our capital city are both in the Mid-Atlantic. It is known for its strong accents. You may have heard New York and New Jersey have very distinctive and different accents than most parts of the United States. This area is also known for its pizza. There is debate in the United States, but most people say that New York and New York City is the best for pizza. But this region also has some really great nature. So Shenandoah National Park is a famous park. It includes our Appalachian mountain range. So there are large mountains in this region. We also have forests and even a lot of sandy coastline. So there are many parts of the mid-Atlantic where people go to the beach and go out for a good time on the ocean. The third region that I want to talk about is the Southeast. This region is probably the most famous for Florida. That's often the state that people have heard of the most often. So the largest city in this region is Jacksonville, Florida, which is known for some amazing beaches. So if you want to go and swim in the ocean, Florida is a great place to go. But there's some other really amazing nature there as well. There's a lot of swamp in this area. So the Everglades are some of our most famous swamps in the United States. The picture in the middle with the crocodile is in the Everglades. My parents actually went to the Everglades and they counted. They saw 36 crocodiles in one day. So it is a really amazing place for people to go. But this area also has another mountain range. So we also have the Smoky Mountains, which you can find in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. So there's a wide range of natural landscapes and of nature in this area. A couple of other things it's known for barbecue food. So if any of you have ever had pulled pork, American style, or if you've ever had smoked ribs, that barbecue food originated in the Southeast. It is also known for jazz music. So if any of you are fans of jazz, jazz actually started in Louisiana, which is also included in the Southeastern region. So I want to do a quick check to see how much we remember. So I am going to ask you a question. I will ask you which region something is from. If it is from the Northeast, you can hold up one finger. If it is from the Mid-Atlantic, 2. If it is from the Southeast, we will do 3. Okay, so let me look at my notes here. Okay, so which region is known for jazz music? 1, 2, or 3? Okay, I see a lot of people said 3. Yes, that is correct. It is the Southeast, which is known for jazz music. Yes, and as well, if you want to put your answer in the chat, if you don't have your video on, that is also completely fine. So the second question is, which region has New York City? Okay, I see a lot of 2s. And that is correct. It is 2. It is the Mid-Atlantic that has New York City. Which region has the Florida Everglades? Three is very popular in the chat. I see a few 3s on video. Yep, that is Southeast. Which region is known for seafood, particularly lobster? 1, awesome. I see some videos with 1 as well. Good job. Yes, that is the Northeast is known for lobster. And the last question, which region is known for Acadia National Park? Acadia. Okay. Some people say 1, some people see 2. Okay, this one is 1. So the Northeast is where Acadia National Park is. It seems like you all are listening and most of you got the correct answers, which is wonderful. So we can move on to some of the other regions. Whoops. There we go. Skipped ahead. Sorry about that. Okay, perfect. So now we're on region 4. Can everyone see region 4 Midwest on the screen? Okay, getting a thumbs up. Perfect. So region 4 is the Midwest. You already know a little bit about the Midwest because both Minnesota and Ohio, so both of my homes are in the Midwest. The Midwest, like I mentioned, is famous for lakes. So not only does Minnesota have a lot of lakes, but the Great Lakes, which are some of the largest bodies of water and some of the largest lakes in the world, are in the Great Lakes. So the middle picture is actually someone surfing on a lake. The waves are big enough because the lakes are so large that people can go surfing most times of the year. The Midwest has a few other interesting landscape features. So they have a lot of prairies and flatlands, which make it great for farming, also really great for cows. So if you are a fan of American cheese, all of that comes from the Midwest. The Midwest is also famous, like I mentioned, for the beginning of the Mississippi River and for the Badlands, which is the picture on the bottom. The Badlands have the most bison of anywhere in the world, and they're a really amazing prairie landscape national park. The Midwest is also famous for the beginning of American style football. So if any of you have ever watched the NFL or American football, it began in the Midwest. The largest city is Chicago, Illinois, which is the third largest city in the United States. So it is a really great place if you are interested in art or music or theater. There are a lot of museums in Chicago. It is also on the Great Lake. So it looks like you are on the ocean, even though you would actually be visiting a city on a lake. Because the lake is so large, you can't see the end of it. So Chicago is a really fun place to visit. The fifth region is the Southwest. So the most famous part of the Southwest is the Grand Canyon. I saw several people at the beginning talking about the Grand Canyon on the Mentimeter word cloud. But there are other famous national parks in this area. So another one is Zion, which is the picture in the middle. Zion is also known for amazing desert landscapes. And then White Sands is the picture on the bottom. I have been to White Sands. The best part about it is that you can sled or toboggan down the hill and down all of the sand, and you can wear your shorts. It will be very warm, so you don't have to deal with the cold snow, but still go sledding. The largest city in this area is Houston, Texas. And Houston, Texas is known for what the Southwest is also known for. So it is known for spicy food. If you like Mexican food, Houston is a great place to go. It is also known as being the home of many rodeos, and cowboys, when they used to roam the West, were often found in the southwestern part of the United States. So we are going to pause. We will do the same activity, but this time we will add 4 for the Midwest and 5 for the Southwest. So again, you can either hold up your hand and show me answers on your video, or you can put answers in the chat. All right, so which region is known for making cheese? Okay, looks like most people got this one. It is 4, it is the Midwest, my favorite region, as that is where I currently am zooming from. Next question, which region has the biggest city of Boston? Which region's biggest city is Boston? Okay, see a few answers on video. Lots of answers in the chat. 1 is correct. Northeast is where Boston is. Next question, which region has the Grand Canyon? Which region has the Grand Canyon? Okay, see lots of 5s. That is correct. The Southwest, right, is the region with the Grand Canyon. And which region has the beginning of the Mississippi River? Which region has the beginning of the Mississippi River? I see a few different answers. This one is a bit harder. See a lot of 4s. I see some people saying 1. So this one is for the Midwest. So the Midwest is where the Mississippi River begins. The last question, which region has the United States capital of Washington, D.C.? So which region is our president, Joe Biden, currently living in? I see some 2s. I see a 1. Okay, looks like most of you got it. That is to the Mid-Atlantic. So we'll talk about the last 2 regions. So region number 6, this is probably the most famous region in the United States, is the West. This region only includes 2 states, Nevada and California. So the largest city in this region is Los Angeles, which is the 2nd largest city in the United States, but it is also famous for Las Vegas. So Las Vegas is the picture on the top right. That's where many people in the US go on vacation. There's always a lot of music there and casinos. So it's one of the more popular destinations in the US. But they also have a lot of great national parks. So you can see on the top left photo, that is Yosemite National Park. The bottom photo is Redwoods National Park, which includes an amazing beach. So this area is known for their beaches. The bottom right as well is Santa Monica Pier, which is in the Los Angeles area. So I have visited the Santa Monica Pier, and it is a wonderful place to spend an afternoon to enjoy the ocean and to get to as well do a lot of shopping, which I do enjoy doing when I'm on vacation. So the last region is the Northwest. So the Northwest is known for its amazing nature. So the largest city, Seattle, is actually right next to Mount Rainier. So the picture that you see in the middle is taken from Seattle. So Seattle would be like right behind where the photographer is standing. So Seattle is a really amazing city to visit. You can see the killer whales and the orcas swimming right next to the city of Seattle. There are some other great places to visit as well. You can go to Yellowstone National Park, which I saw several people included in our word cloud in the beginning. That is in the top picture there. You can also go to the Rocky Mountains, which is the bottom picture. The Rocky Mountains are our largest mountain range in the United States. So the Rocky Mountains start in the United States and they go up through Canada. So they're extremely large and extremely beautiful. This area is also known as the start of Starbucks coffee. So if any of you have visited a Starbucks, I know there's one in Brno and a few in Prague. That company started in Seattle and is probably the most famous company from the Northwest. Okay, so now that we have gone through all 7, we are going to do a short activity. So everyone, again, will need a pen and paper or your phone, something ready that you can put your answers on. I want you to number it 1 through 7, okay? I will show the map one more time to remind you all of our 7 main regions of the United States. And then you will have to match each picture to a specific region. So for example, if the picture has a 1 on it, you will have to tell me where the 1 picture is from, okay? So like I said, I will show the map again so you can remember all of the regions, but we will see how many pictures you can match to the correct region. Does anyone have a question about this activity? Okay, if you do have a question, you can put it in the chat. Take a moment to look at the map again, remind yourself of all of the regions. All right, how many can you match? So we will take a few minutes, try to match as many as you can. Which photo is which region? Perfect. I see the first person is done. Once you finish, if you could write done in the chat, that would be great. So we know when most people have finished. It looks like people are starting to finish, so we'll take a little bit more time to finish up your answers. Okay, I see that many people are done. So let's see how many you got correct. So here are the answers. So the first question was Hollywood in the West. The second one was farmers in the Midwest. The third was the swamp of Florida. That was in the Everglades. The fourth was a picture from the Grand Canyon in the Southwest. The fifth was from New York. Hopefully many of you recognize the Statue of Liberty. The seventh region was the sixth photo, which was from Yellowstone. And then the last was the Northeast with the lobster from Maine. Again, if you like lobster, Maine and the Northeast is a great place to go. So did anyone get all of the answers correct? If you did, I would love to know. Feel free to put it in the chat. Did anyone get all of the right answers? All right, good job, Adela, Luca. Wonderful. All right, it looks like several of you got all of the right answers. So good work. So before I end my part of the lesson and open things up for questions, I would love to know, which region do you want to travel to the most and why? So if you could only go to one region, what region would it be? So I'll give you all a moment to think through which region that would be. You can either write on your notes which region you'd want to travel to and why, or if you'd like to put in the chat, that would be great as well, so I can see where you all would like to travel. Someone's going to Las Vegas. 2 people are going to Las Vegas. Nice. Northwest, Texas. Everywhere, that's a very good answer as well. California. Someone's going to New York. I think Mid-Atlantic might be my choice as well. I love Washington, D.C., and New York is really fun. Las Vegas, Southwest to the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is amazing. I visited about 10 years ago and it was beautiful. Ooh, New Orleans. New Orleans is fun as well. A few jazz music fans in the crowd. Wonderful. It looks like we have a really good range of where you all want to go. Please continue to put your region in the chat. I would love to hear where everyone would like to go. But I wanted to officially end by giving you all some key terms to remember. So this will be helpful if you, again, do get a United States topic in your Maturita, or if you get specifically the U.S. Geography topic. These are some good words and phrases to know. So I put the 7 regions again, and I also put all of the national parks that I mentioned. So the United States is really big and has so many different landscapes and natural features. So these are just some of the national parks that we have, but these are some of the most famous national parks in our country. I hope you all learned something. I hope you enjoyed our lesson. And I am happy to take any questions that you have. We should have plenty of time to answer some questions. So either you can put a question in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question, that would also be great. So what questions can I answer for you all? Oh, I see. I already have a question. Are you familiar with Joel Garrow and his 9 regions of North America? That is a great question. I am. People divide the United States and North America in several different ways. There's not really an agreement on how we should divide up the United States, but he does a really good job of, he divides the United States based primarily on similar cultures. So for example, when he talks about the breadbasket, he's talking about the region that has a lot of farmers and creates a lot of food. So it's a different division. The division that I showed breaks up the United States at state boundary lines. So it's a little more based on which states are in which regions, whereas his map, if I remember correctly, divides them in a different way, based a little more on the cultures of the different areas, and will even divide some states in 2 or in 3 if different parts of the states fall in different categories. But I will say, for the person who put that in the chat, if you have any interesting facts about how he divides it up, or if there's anything you think would be useful for the group to know, feel free to share more in the chat, because that is a really interesting way to divide the United States. I see I have another question. Which place in the US would you like to visit and you haven't been to? That is a really good question. I would say I really would like to visit Yosemite, which was one of the parks in California. It looks really beautiful and different than any other sort of landscape that I've seen in the United States. So I would love to go to Yosemite, which is in kind of the middle part of California. I've never been there. I have also never been to Texas. I've never been to Houston or Dallas. I've never been anywhere in Texas. So I would love to visit at some point and hopefully get some really good food, and maybe listen to some of the music there as well, because Texas has a lot of really good country music, if any of you are country music fans. Oh, I see I have a few more questions. What hockey team is your favorite? That is such a good answer, and it's a such a good question and very easy to answer. Because I was born in Minnesota, Minnesota has a hockey team called the Minnesota Wild, and I love them. When I go to hockey games, I'm normally a little bit of a quieter, more reserved person, but when I am at hockey games, I am loud and I have a really great time. So Minnesota Wild, definitely my favorite. Let me go back in the chat here. I see we have some really good questions coming in. Next question is, let's see, what is my favorite place in the US? So like I mentioned, I love Washington, D.C., which is our capital. Because I studied history, I really like cities that have a lot of history. And in Washington, D.C., there are a lot of museums and amazing historic sites to visit. So I would say Washington, D.C. is probably my favorite. What U.S. actor is my favorite? Oh, now that's a hard question. That's hard. I think, honestly, my favorite is probably Matt Damon. I don't know if any of you have watched like The Bourne Identity or The Bourne Ultimatum, but I really love those movies. And he seems like he's very kind and charming and funny. So probably Matt Damon. I really like him. Okay, so this is a good question. Why is it often the case that the biggest and most famous cities are not the capitals of their states? Illinois is Springfield, not Chicago. Is it a way of avoiding favoritism in terms of funding? That is a really good question. So to give a little more context, every single state has their own state capital. The governments of the state live and work in the state capital. So the reason that they're sometimes not the biggest city is not really about favoritism, it's about history. So normally the capital cities are created when the state is created. So for example, Minnesota became a state in 1858. At the time that it became a state, the biggest city was called St. Paul. So they placed the capital there. It was where most of the powerful people in Minnesota were living. But today, it is not the largest city. The largest city in Minnesota is Minneapolis, but Minneapolis has grown a lot over the last 150 years. So it's no longer, right, the largest city. St. Paul is no longer the largest city in the state. So it's normally due to history. Whatever was the biggest and most powerful city when the state joined as an official US state is what was the capital and what became the capital. But that is a really, really good question. To give another example, Los Angeles, huge city, right? It's the second largest city in the United States. It is not the capital of California. The capital of California is Sacramento, which is not that big, not that important of a city today. But when California was created, a lot of the most important people lived and worked in Sacramento, and it was very large at the time. So Sacramento was chosen as the state capital. Okay. Can you play an instrument? Because you said you love to sing. That is a good question. I can kind of play the clarinet. I played in high school. So I did play when I was younger, but I have not played in probably 6 years. So I don't know if that counts, but I used to be able to play the clarinet. What is your life-changing book? That is a really good question. I would say my favorite book is a classic. I love Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It is a book that I read almost every year. So that is the book that makes me sort of the most happy when I read it and I enjoy it. But a book that I read recently that really changed my life and changed my perspective was actually a book called Educated, which is by an American woman who wrote about going to Harvard and going to some other really famous universities when previously she had never even been to public school. She was schooled at home her whole life. She lived out in the woods with her parents. She didn't really have many friends. And so it's a true story about a woman starting to go to university and meeting people outside of her family for the first time. So it's a really interesting book. Question from the chat, US is so large. How did you feel in our tiny Czech Republic? Honestly, I loved it. Because I am from the Midwest, it takes so long to travel anywhere. Like if I wanted to drive to Chicago, it would take me 6 hours to drive to Chicago. So I loved that I could use a train, that I did not have to drive. The trains were great because we don't have many trains in the United States. And I loved being able to travel and being able to get to so many amazing cities and towns in less than 5 hours. I absolutely loved it. And I missed how easy it was to travel and to get around. Because the US is so large, it's a little bit harder. We have to take airplanes most places. These are all good questions. What US food is your favorite? Oh, that is a hard question. Honestly, it's a classic, but I love a cheeseburger, like a really good cheeseburger. There's nothing better. So cheeseburger and fries would be my answer. What is your favorite way to travel across the US? So like I said, it is pretty big. If I wanted to go to California right now, it would take me 37 hours to drive. If I got on a plane, it would still take me 4.5 hours on a plane. So the US is quite large. If I can drive, I do like to drive. The US is really beautiful. There's a lot of nature, so it's fun to drive. But normally, for the sake of ease, I do have to take a plane. It's normally too far. And like I mentioned, unfortunately, we don't have many trains. So it's almost impossible to get across the United States on a train. Oh, thank you, Clara. Not a question, but likes listening to me. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. What is your favorite book? I already answered this one, but a very good question. What do I most like about Minnesota? So that is a good question. I think one thing I love is Minnesotans are actually also known for their accent. So right now I am not using my Minnesota accent, so it'll be easier for you all to understand. But if you ever meet a Minnesotan who has a thick accent, it sounds very different. So it normally sounds like, oh yeah, you know, I went down to the store the other day. So it sounds like nothing you've ever heard before. And it's really funny to listen to. We have a lot of different phrases, like we say, oh, you betcha, instead of yes. So if someone asks, are you ready to go? You say, oh, you betcha. You don't say yes. So we also have a lot of different phrases and slang. So I love that part of being in Minnesota. Which book genre do I enjoy the most? These are some good book-related questions. I love reading historical fiction. So because I studied history, I really love anything that is set in a different time period. So I love books that are taking place hundreds of years ago or decades ago. I love historical books. Can you imagine living abroad in the future, not in the US? Yes, I definitely can. I really enjoyed my time in the Czech Republic. I also spent part of my time during university in Italy. So I lived in Italy for several months, and I really enjoyed that experience as well. I don't know if I will be able to live abroad anytime soon, but I would love to try at some point to spend a few more months abroad. Right now, my boyfriend is finishing his schooling. He is getting a PhD in chemistry. And once he finishes, he may be able to spend a year working at a university abroad. So I am hoping that if he goes to Australia, for example, which is one option that I could go with him for a year and spend another year abroad. So I can imagine it. I hope it will happen in the future. Do Americans think they were born already in the target and they have nowhere heading to? That is a really good question. So it really depends on who you talk to, but there is a lot of country and national pride in the United States. So there are many people that feel like America is the best country. This is the best it will ever get. And part of that is the United States is so large. So it's all very difficult for people to travel abroad because you do have to fly. It can be expensive. So there are also a lot of people who never travel outside of the United States as well, which is a little bit different than in Europe, where it's a bit easier to travel to a different country. So unfortunately, there are people who think, yes, America is the best, right? This is the best that I will ever be able to experience. But I will say there are a lot of people who enjoy to travel and enjoy seeing other countries like myself. So certainly not every American, but yes, there is a big population that does think America is sort of the best country that you could ever live in. So I was very disappointed visiting Sacramento. Understandable. Another Pride and Prejudice fan, wonderful. I see we have a few more questions. Do you miss your family when you're living so far away? I did. I missed my family. I enjoyed my time in the Czech Republic and my time in Italy, and living in Ohio even now has been really great. But it has also been hard to not see my family. I have a younger brother who I really enjoy spending time with, and I have not been able to see him very much during the COVID pandemic because I've not been able to fly home to visit them. So that has been really hard. So I do definitely miss my family when I am away. My parents are great as well, so I definitely miss seeing them every day. Answer a couple more. Have I ever tried a typical Czech meal? Yes. I ate a lot of svíčková while I was there. Many dumplings and pork. I really enjoyed Czech food. I lived with a woman who would cook for me relatively often. She spoiled me with amazing Czech food. So I do really miss getting to eat some good dumplings in particular. I loved the dumplings, and we don't have anything like that in the United States. So I miss the dumplings. Did you learn any Czech phrases during your stay here? I did. I learned quite a few phrases. My favorite, I know it's simple, but ahoy was really fun. It's so quick and easy to say. But I also learned, all the basics of dobrý den, dobrý odpoledne, right? All the classic greetings. I also did a lesson where my students taught me like Czech idioms or Czech phrases that are hard to translate. And that was one of my favorite lessons. So I did get to learn some while I was there. All right. I think I got through most of the other questions. So we're running close to our time, but I wanted to say again, thank you all so much for joining us today. It was really wonderful to be able to teach again and to be able to reconnect with folks in the Czech Republic. So thank you all so much for your attention.
Thank you, Lizzy, very much. Congratulations on maxing out the number of people watching, participating live on Zoom. And for the whole time, we had over 80 more people watching live on Facebook. So that's a huge success. I think you can stop sharing now if you want.
Perfect.
And I have to say, I felt like you are like a duck to water. in this virtual environment. It's incredible. I remember seeing you in Hustopeche, and this was equally as natural and wonderful. So thank you for your energy and preparation. And for all the participants, I would like to ask you to please complete the feedback form. I shared the link in the chat window. If you plan to participate in the next live lesson next week, you don't have to do that. You can do that after the second lesson. But if you don't, please let us know how you enjoyed today so that we can improve our future lessons. There's also an option to add themes you would like us to work on in the future, because these live lessons seem to be very popular. So we consider adding more themes. And I think that's probably it. So thank you very much for being here with us. Thank you to Lizzy again, and we look forward to seeing you soon again.
Bye, everyone.